Hey guys, James here with Waterford Business Solutions. And today marks 2 weeks until business tax filing deadline hits us on March 16th of 2026. And 6 weeks until the personal tax deadline hits us on April 15th. One thing that a lot of clients come to us initially always questioning or always either wanting to do or wondering why their old accountant did it is extensions. Filing a tax extension for them, for their business, and either I want to do this or I've always done this or I've never wanted to do this. I've never understood why my accountant did this. So, since we're so close to that deadline of extension filing, we wanted to take a minute to talk about just that. Now, before we jump in, it's never too late to get ahead of taxes. While we are only 2 weeks and 6 weeks away from those big deadlines, we do still theoretically have time to get some things in place, at least get an extension in place, and start moving forward on getting a solid set of financials and a solid understanding of your business before jumping into finances and tax filings. So if you haven't gotten your taxes filed, if you don't have your books ready to go yet, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at Waterford Business Solutions by giving us a call at 864 351 0852 or shooting us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com. Now, with tax extensions, the first thing to keep in mind is if you're filing an extension, it must be filed by the deadline of the tax return. So if you're filing an extension for a 1065 partnership return or an 1120S S Corp return, those must be filed by March 16th to count as an extension. If you try to file it on March 17th, it's not going to be accepted because you have to extend or file by March 16th of 2026. Same thing with personal 1040 returns and C Corp 1120 returns. Those must be filed or extended by April 15th of 2026. If you do not put this extension in by that time and you come to your accountant a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, doesn't matter, an extension will get auto denied. There's nothing we can do to solve that because the IRS will no longer accept an extension. So the first thing with an extension is just that. If you're going to file one, make sure to file it on time. Every year, I have at least a handful of clients that come to me a few days after or a few months after, and they're like, oh, I need to file an extension. I never did one. Sorry, that's not how this works. Now, the second part of an extension is really what is an extension. Let's talk on that real quick. Ultimately, all an extension is an extension for the time to file the physical return. It's not an extension on time to pay. You still owe any money that you owe when that tax return is extended. Now, business returns, 1065, 1120S, even trust returns, those don't generally owe anything from a federal standpoint, so not as big of a deal. But definitely those personal returns coming up here in April, that's a bigger deal because if you owe any personal tax liability or anything like that, an extension doesn't give you more time to pay that tax liability. All an extension is doing is giving you more time to file the physical return. And it's also super important to remember with certain steps, certain states, said the wrong word there. Certain states, they will also require payments. So like California, they require payments from S corporations and partnerships, and those have to be done by a specific date. The extension does not matter. There's multiple states like this out there. Even Texas. Texas doesn't have income taxes. No, but depending on how much business your business does, how much income it brings in, there could be a business or a corporate tax on your business. So filing an extension doesn't get you out of paying. All it does is get you out of having to file the physical return. And it's also super important to understand some states accept extensions, some states don't. Some states, like Tennessee, require personal property tax returns. And to fill out that personal property tax return, you have to have already done your corporate tax return because you have to have the depreciation schedule from your corporate tax return on the personal property tax return. And if you don't do that, it causes an issue. So you've got to keep in mind, while an extension may work federally and is acceptable federally, you need to check with your state, and you need to make sure if any money is owed that you're paying in that money. If you don't pay in that money in April with your personal taxes and whatever money's due, then you're going to end up paying a penalty for not paying in your taxes on time, and you're going to pay interest on the amount of taxes that you didn't pay in. So at the end of the day, you're paying more in taxes. We've talked about in past why making quarterly tax payments is important, while doing an estimated tax payment based off of your extension or an extension tax payment is just as important and arguably more important because it's got a higher penalty associated with it for not actually getting that extension payment put in. So definitely something that you've got to make sure that you're keeping in mind. An extension is only providing you more time to file the physical paperwork, not pay in the taxes. Now, at the end of the day, the question of this video is tax extensions and should I file one? Well, let's break it down. If your books are not physically ready to file taxes, then yes, file an extension. However, have a general idea on how much you think that you're going to owe in taxes so that with that extension you can go ahead and pay. If you just don't want to pay the taxes, yet you think you can push it off until September, October, the extension deadline, then no, don't file an extension, because at the end of the day, you can do that, but you're going to end up paying more in taxes by doing that. Not being able to afford paying your taxes. Should you file an extension? No. Still file the normal tax return, still get that in, that way it's done, and then request a payment plan from the IRS, because a payment plan then eliminates the penalties. As long as you work within that payment plan, it will eliminate the penalties. You won't get that, and you'll just get a set agreed upon interest rate. And sometimes there's not even an interest rate. If you've got a good paying history with the IRS, then they're not going to even charge you an interest rate on it. So a payment plan is always a good idea if you physically can't afford it. If you don't have someone filing your taxes yet, then yes, file an extension. But still make sure that you go in and you put in any estimated tax payments. The other thing that we get all the time is, oh, well, my area is under a natural disaster. We actually did a video on this last year about, hey, there's a disaster declaration for my area, so I'm not going to file my taxes. Should I file an extension? Ultimately, even if there's a natural disaster declaration, that's a mouthful apparently, even if there's a natural disaster declaration, you should still go ahead and file an extension, because just like we talked about in that video, there are times that I have seen a declaration where people don't have to file, and then they still get letters, they still get penalties for not filing on time because the IRS messes up. Whereas an extension is dictated directly to you, your business's EIN, your social security number. A disaster declaration is an area as a whole. So the filters, the computers, the people at the IRS can regularly accidentally get something wrong or miss that, and they will then file or send you letters with penalties and interest, and then you have to fight those penalties. So if you are in a disaster declaration, that's fine. You don't have to file. You may not even have to pay. That's a different story. Go back and let's read that blog, watch that video from last year. But do still file that extension because it associates the delay with you specifically, not with an entire region. At the end of the day, I'm not a huge proponent of tax extensions because I'm a proponent of making sure your books are tax ready every single month. We started filing tax returns for clients the second week of January. We were getting data put in, we were getting everything set up, we had things queued and ready to go as soon as e-file banks open for clients because we are keeping them constantly tax ready. And at the end of the day, an extension is just more time to do the paperwork. Why are we pushing off the inevitable if we are ready? Now, if you're not ready, if you don't have solid books, if you don't have a solid financial understanding with your business, completely different story. Yes, an extension makes sense, but you still need to plan out for that extension. So only file if your actual books, your actual information is not ready, or you're waiting on. I mean, for a personal return, you may be waiting on a K-1 or a 1099 that you haven't received. That's a perfectly acceptable reason to file an extension if you're waiting on documentation personally and you don't have it yet. But again, make sure you're paying in what taxes you think you will owe. Guys, we've done a lot of videos throughout this tax season on what to do, what not to do. Stick with us. We're going to be doing some more as we go throughout the rest of the season here into March and April. So definitely stick around with us. We're planning on doing even more as we get later into this year. But every Monday we do a video explaining anything that we can about money, about taxes, about business operations, about accounting. So go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel here at Waterford Business Solutions and get notified of videos just like this every week. And if you need help getting your books in order or you have questions about taxes or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us here by giving us a call at 864-351-0852 or shooting us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com.